Got it.
And then just makes me co-host when you get a chance. And I think as soon as Valerie's ready, we're ready.
We don't have our new microphone yet.
No, it is not coming yet. Right. All right. You are good, Jerry. Mhm.
All right, I welcome everyone here and at home to this June 28th, 2023 Rush Town Board meeting. Please join me for our Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Will our deputy town clerk please call the roll?
Chase,
Here.
Councilwoman Corbin,
Here.
Raleigh,
Here.
Councilman Willenberg,
Here.
Riser Houston.
I am here. Thank you very much. And I've got just a couple of announcements. One starts off with Rush Rifle Range, and I keep bringing this up every month, but it seems they're coming under more scrutiny and more people are complaining about the noise that they have over there. This is the range on Stony Brook Road. And I've talked with the top guy over there, Captain Mike Carnes. He used to be a Rochester police captain. And he seems like they bend over backwards to not use the range too much. But some of our residents feel that they do use it too much. So I don't know where that's going to go, but if any of you are interested in what their schedule is, I can provide you with a copy of it. I also have a letter that was sent to me by Elizabeth Hoke. It's a short letter that I'll read. Elizabeth states, I have witnessed and have been a part of the 100-acre nature park transforming into a beautiful natural area to be used for recreation and to observe and enjoy nature. The hundreds of trees and shrubs that have been planted and future plantings will help negate the effects of climate change. The Monroe County Environmental Management Council is working to contact the municipalities throughout the county with a climate action plan survey to see what towns and villages are doing to mitigate climate change, share ideas and resources. I believe our 100 acres is a step in this collaborative effort and should be shared. A park designation will preserve this ecosystem for generations to come. The combination of the Genesee River, small tributaries, old growth forests, meadows, and plant and wildlife diversity are a unique treasure to be enjoyed and protected. I look forward to the addition of trails at the park, which will allow accessibility for all our townspeople. I think that a lot of people agree with Elizabeth on that, And I have already started the process of getting the town of Rush on the state register for committing the 100-acre park to a recreation area, and also to using it as one of the methods to gain points for that purpose of reducing our carbon footprint. And that in turn makes us more eligible for some grants that will be coming out. So I think that's a good thing. We can go into the public comment period now. If anyone has a public comment they'd like to make, we can entertain people in this live audience, and we can also entertain people at home on Zoom. So if you'd like to speak, raise your hand, come up to the microphone, identify who you are and where you live, and have at it. And first of all is Janet Chase. Thank you very much.
The right one.
It does, if you speak right into it.
Can you hear me okay? Is it on? Thank you. Can't hear you. Oh,
It's on. It
Okay,
worked well.
how's that? If
That's
I
much better.
really, I'll talk really loud. So, Janet Chase, 31 Bradford Road, but here on behalf of Rush Recreation and Park Association. And as most of you know, our highway superintendent, Mark David, retires this week. And this is what was written in an award that was given to him this morning. This award celebrates Mark's achievements that will continue to improve the quality of life of Rush residents and visitors for years to come. Mark's commitment and willingness to be actively involved with us has been critical to the success of the townwide cleanup and the Rush Gardens projects. Under Mark's leadership, the Highway Department efforts resulted in significant positive results for our community. Our town is more beautiful because of Mark. Mark and the Highway Department were a valuable partner with the 15 days of Springtown cleanup. This event engages scouts and residents to pick up trash and litter on our town's roadways. Mark helped select roads that would be safe for volunteers, obtained the necessary road permits, provided trash bags and ongoing access to the dumpsters, and was available on call to our project coordinator throughout our extended 15-day event. Because of his support, we were able to engage more residents to participate. Mark and the Highway Department have been active in our town's Gardens project. Without Mark and the support of the Highway Department, we could not have gotten this project accomplished as well as it has been. There is a lot that goes into it, and the garden project saves taxpayers more than $5,000 each year. Mark has been a public servant who went beyond expectations. And while Mark may be the first to say that he just did his job, that he did not do anything extraordinary, we would have to respectfully disagree. For those of us who have had the opportunity to work directly with him, we know that he went above and beyond his job responsibilities when we called. He responded quickly and took the lead over and over to help. Mark chose to be our valued partner, and he made the critical difference that allowed the projects to be successful. As Mark retires after 40 years of public service, we are privileged to stop for this moment to acknowledge and express our gratitude and appreciation for his contributions to our community. We wish Mark and his family all the best and are grateful for all he has done to help our community.
And I will second that statement. And I also will thank Mark for beyond what you said. And I also want to welcome Mark's replacement, Mr. DJ Kyle, who who has already committed to making Mark look like an amateur.
Oh.
Oh, I can't wait. Okay, would anyone else like to speak? How about at home on Zoom?
I put it in the chat. Oh, let's see. Oh, that was from me. I put it, I apologize. I have a little laryngitis, everyone. So far, no one in the chat unless Valerie. That's my message, I believe, so. If you hit that little red button, if they, yeah, let's see if they sent you something. No. Joe, yeah. No, it's just me. That is it.
No one else? Okay, then we can move on.
We, it is 7:15.
I
I knew you saw that. so.
just looked at the clock.
Yeah, great minds
But
think
you can
alike.
tell me it is, so if you'd like.
7:16.
Oh, okay. We're gonna have a public hearing for the purpose of adopting local law number 2023 to amend chapters 120-5, 120-12, and 120-15, and adopt chapters 120-64.3 of the town code of the town of Rush regarding cannabis. Did I say that correctly?
You nailed it that time.
Cannabis retail dispensaries, cannabis on-site consumption establishments, and smoking cannabis at places. I do have a,
Valerie would like to read the legal notice, sir.
yep, I'm hoping Valerie will read the legal notice while I look for the, go ahead, please.
Please notice that a local law has been introduced to the town board of the town of Rush, New York. Designated 120-5. Title Commercial Districts and chapter 120. And adopt chapter 20-64. 3 entitled Smoking of Vaping Cannabis in Public. Regarding cannabis retail dispensary, on-site consumption establishments. Take further notice that said local law of 20. And the Rush Council. It is 5977 East Henrietta Road. It is available for public inspection during regular business hours. This notice is being provided pursuant to section 20 of the New York State Municipal Home Rule Law. Please take further notice that a public hearing upon said local law has been scheduled for the 28th day of June 2023 at 7:15 p.m. to be held by the Rush Town Board at the Rush Town Hall, 5977 East Henrietta Road, Rush, New York. An opportunity to be heard in regard thereto will then and there be given. Written comments may also be directed to the Rush Counselor, 5977 East Henrietta Road, Rush, New York, 14543. On or before 4:30 p.m. on the 27th day of June 2023. The Rush Town Hall has barrier-free access for the physically handicapped.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, so anyone that would like to speak relative to the public hearing, I invite you to do so.
No one signed in, Supervisor.
Well, I know no one signed, but John Morelli is someone, so John, please speak. Yes, please. And so we know who you are, state your name and address.
John Morelli, 535 5 Points Road.
So, there's a couple things going on that I think might complicate things and be straightened out, sure. One is that the code committee that I've been working on under Scott Straw has been looking very closely at the Hamlet area, where literally everything is out of compliance, and trying to come up with a code to accommodate it. That code will not be a commercial code. It will be probably a multi-purpose or multi-use code, or will be proposed as a multi-use or multi-purpose code. And there will be commercial elements in it and so on. So that is a concern. Another is that you mentioned both commercial and limited industrial districts, and that is also an issue. The activities in the limited industrial district are somewhat different than the activities in the commercial zone. A large portion, 30%, is being proposed of the limited industrial to accommodate commercial activities. And that, in fact, could accommodate your concerns with regard to a marijuana dispensary or use type of operation. But I guess my concern is that, and I'm sure this will be straightened out along the way as we figure out what we're doing and what we're proposing, because ultimately it's going to be your choice. But the commercial aspect might be something that is appropriate for commercial district, specified in the multi-use district for the hamlet, and in a limited industrial district, allowed to the extent that it's within the 30% that is allowed for commercial use, rather than it's not, it doesn't seem to me to be a limited industrial use. It's certainly a commercial use. So those are just some issues that I bring up that will be coming your way, and they all seem resolvable, but I just thought I would bring them up. Question? Yes.
Did the comprehensive plan committee discuss this?
The comprehensive plan committee has spent a considerable amount of time discussing, excuse me, the status of the hamlet as being completely not in compliance with anything. And the need to create perhaps a multi-zone district, a multi-use district that accommodates basically setbacks, businesses, housing, and all the things that exist in the hamlet. I do not believe that we talked specifically about cannabis dispensaries, although they would fall into the commercial end of things. I guess that's all I can report at this point.
Any other questions for John?
Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to make a public comment? Anyone on Zoom?
There is no one on Zoom, and I did send a special invitation.
Oh,
Someone is on Zoom. Did not pop up for me. Darn it. Oh, Arthur, go ahead. If you could unmute yourself, turn your video on.
Okay.
Hi, good evening.
Hi there. Good evening. This is Robin Rapport from
Oh.
Meadowood.
Robin, I apologize. We've got Arthur on first, and then we will have you come on if that's okay. My apologies.
You lost me. I don't know what you just said.
Robin, we've got Arthur coming on, and then you can be able to comment right after he's done.
Fine.
Sorry about that. Valerie, I think they're chatting straight to you, so I'm not seeing their names. So Arthur, go ahead, and then we'll have Robin come on after you're done.
All right, thank you. Good evening. Arthur Avila, 1000 Rush Scottsville Road. I'm going to start with a quote from The Economist, which is, while lab animals are an expensive way of understanding the risks of cannabis, North America's come free. I've been reading thoroughly about this aspect, and while I understand there is several things that are not on the hands of the town, I believe there is deep responsibility of the town of doing whatever it can to make a positive impact on what it relates to drug use in our community. There are some very good references. I'm more than willing to forward everything that I'm going to mention here. A lot of it can be found in a book called The Smoke Screen by Kevin Sabet. The use of marijuana in the United States has been increasing. It's today twice as much as it was during the Bill Clinton administration. There is also a false perception that there is no risk in the smoking of marijuana. So kids between 12 and 17 years old, only 23.26% of them had the perception that there is a risk in using monthly marijuana, while teenagers and young adults between 18 and 25, that percentage drops below 12%. And then it goes back up to close to 23% at the 26 and older age range. Marijuana is, the consumption of marijuana is related to increased drug and driving fatalities. That's data from Colorado since they legalized the use of it. There's also research published in The Lancet that the consumption of marijuana increases sharply the development of psychosis. It's 5 times more likely to develop psychosis for a smoker of marijuana than someone who does not. Also, the marijuana in the market is not only the only in the form of smoking of the leaves, like cigarettes. You also have oils and other concentrates that put some products on the hands of young people that is 99 times more potent than the joints that were available in the 60s and the 70s. There are several health risks associated with that. And another misconception is it's something that would create escape for the people who are hooked into opioids. But despite of that belief, there are studies that show that in America, the states where the legalization of marijuana occurred had an increase of the incidence of the opioid addiction and opioid crisis. Also, smoking marijuana for pregnant women is linked for lower birth weights. It's such a bad substance to have around, and it's so bad that it has been announced in the media out there, and it has very large propaganda financed by the same culprits of the tobacco industry, that there is such a low impact of marijuana. It was a complete lie. On top of that, and that's bringing back to the reference to the book that I mentioned, The Smoke Screen. I'll read a little excerpt here. And it also relates on how we are rolling out that regulation in New York. Non-drug dealers have been granted licenses and are now operating in the legal market while continuing their illegal work. So there is a naive public assumption that with the legalization and the introduction of government licensing and oversight, illegal activity is curtailed. That is a complete myth. There's definitely people who operate on the illegal market and now is giving access to the legal market while maintaining the illegal activity around it. you have a huge price gap between what is the legalized product and what it's not. And there are a lot of people making a lot of money selling things under the table. And one more data point that I want to bring out is that some of you may not know, but during the prohibition of alcohol period from 1920 to 1933, diseases such as cirrhosis and associated with the liver dramatically declined in prevalence, and tens of thousands of lives were saved since 1984 when Congress upped the national minimum drinking age to 21. So those may not be reasons to prohibit alcohol again, because we had a bad experience with it. But marijuana it's a different thing because the use is not so ubiquitous as the one from alcohol. And just by making the availability of those bad substances not so easy, it's already a good way of making any substance misuse drop. So I believe that for those reasons, that the town should not allow the establishments of cannabis dispensaries in the town of Rush. You're going to make accessible to our younger population a addictive substance that it has a dramatic negative impact on their lives. And you could also have the chance of bringing people who are dealing not only on the legal market, but also on the illegal market in town by creating the availability of those cannabis dispensaries as well. And also, you have to be attentive. Just allowing not a dispenser, but a place where people can consume. There are people who skirt the law by selling T-shirts for $200 and giving the drugs for free, because that would be not a sale of the product, so they would skirt the law. So we should not allow cannabis dispensers, should not allow them to sell marijuana-related products, and we should not have establishments that allow the consumption of marijuana in town to protect our younger generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur. Would anyone else like to make a comment?
Robin was.
Yeah, I would like to comment on that, but
Yes, Robin, thank you.
Robin, if you could give us your full name and what
My-
town you live in?
the name is Robin Rapport. And what do you want to know? What else?
The municipality you reside in.
I think it's the town of Rush. I don't know what's the
Thank you.
municipality. Yeah, okay. A lot of the previous statements are conflated with hysteria. There is a danger with any substance used without moderation or guidance. Alcohol is a prime example of that. Alcohol is legal. It's deemed to be okay, and it causes more fatalities than any other substance around. Okay, so saying alcohol is not so bad, but marijuana is terrible is really an extreme conflation of information that is not correct. Don't sell drugs of any sort, alcohol, cigarettes, marijuana, to children under the age of X, 18, 21, whatever. A 6-year-old can't go to the store and buy a 6-pack of beer. That's a reasonable statement. The same restriction should apply to any drugs that can be harmful. Okay, that's all I have to say about that. And I would love to read some of the documentation that Arthur has, because I think it's really terribly biased. The other comment I want to make is I went to the website for the town board, and it's very difficult to move around in. None of the links are working, at least none of the links that seem to be active are active. The link for this meeting doesn't work. I had to type in the whole thing by hand. Since my, I mean, some serious work needs to be done on the town web page. It is not working correctly. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Anyone else from Zoom?
Anyone? I don't see anything there, Valerie, do you? No?
Anyone else in this room? This is your advantage to speak more than 3 minutes because it is a public hearing.
Hi, Mary Ann Rizzo, 25 Stoll Road. I would just encourage the board to develop any laws that are parallel to the laws of alcohol consumption. And as it would relate to cannabis. So I would say, if you could make the laws parallel, I think that would be the right way to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Going once. Going twice. Okay, I declare the hearing closed. And we have a resolution.
The Monroe County has not come back with their 239M referral, so we will have to,
We'll have to do that at another meeting.
or accept more comments. I'm not sure as far as from the code committee of what we as a board are thinking.
I would think that, I mean, all we're saying is that we would allow these in commercial districts or limited industrial, and then whatever the recommendations they come back with, I think that this would fit into whether it's a multi-use that includes commercial and whatever, work in that, or if it fits within that 30%, the limited industrial. I think that we're okay to move forward with it once we get approval from the county. Or at least I wouldn't say approval, I guess, but we can at least vote on it.
Do we need to refer it to the code committee? Right now, the law is set up. First of all, there's a lot of New York, just for people to go back if you didn't read it. The town has to abide by New York state law. There are lots of regulations on this. Can't be within X number of feet of a school and certain other things. So yes, that's all part of what the town would have to abide by. So it couldn't be just anywhere, even if it's zoned commercial. If it's next to a church or a school, still can't do it. Okay, so just to understand that too. So the town is looking at that, and we're saying commercial as opposed to allowing it in a residential area, for example, as well. So we're limiting something that's been approved at the state level in many other states. So we are putting lots of controls on whatever may ultimately pass here. Just as did you want to comment on that,
Yeah,
David?
just one additional comment. The other component to this, in addition to the zoning amendment, which is what we're most familiar with, the other component to this is the prohibition against the use of cannabis in public areas. So that's also a component to this. So although I understand the codes committee may continue to be revising the zoning as it relates to the hamlet, this is a broader zoning change and local law than simply what might be happening in the hamlet. So you certainly, it's up to you. You can wait till the codes committee has something more specific relating to the hamlet, but that should not prevent you from adopting this local law if you want.
I just wanted to point that out, and I think it was already that the hamlet, there are swaths of the hamlet that are currently coded as commercial. There, as you know, is a church, there's daycare, there's other things that would have further restrictions even within the current commercial zone within the hamlet. But as you know, we are looking at that because the way the hamlet is structured and over time and, things were built that today would not pass. Setbacks and so on that are described within a commercial zone. So in order to make things work in general better in the hamlet, the comprehensive plan has been looking at that. The code committee has been looking at how to make the hamlet more in compliance by perhaps, hasn't come to us yet, but perhaps looking at what is currently called commercial and making it multi-use. There are currently, to my understanding, no revisions being contemplated to any residential areas of the town. But what we look as commercial in the hamlet would be different from commercial, say, on West Henrietta Road, for example. I'm just want to point that out. I don't know how that fits in with our code wording under this proposed cannabis law. It's complicated.
Well, I think the thing to add is that there was a lawsuit that has now gone past in the Finger Lakes region. And we're trying to do our due diligence so that when applications come before us, we have the ability to say, we have a plan, our town has a plan where these type of establishments can take place through special permit with planning board. We as a board in this local law came up with commercial districts they would be allowed, along with, as David pointed out, the state requirements that we have no control over whatsoever. So our public hearing tonight was to get input. I feel good about what we've worked on.
Okay, are we
And-
ready to then just wait for
We can't
We've
do
gotta
anything
wait.
until the.
No, I know.
Right,
for the
for the next
county?
meeting,
Okay,
see what the county says. If that's okay to do.
I will table this discussion until we get our response from the county and put it on the future agenda.
Have you closed the public hearing?
And I will close the public hearing. Thank you. I declare this public hearing closed due to lack of response from the county to finalize this subject matter. All agree? Okay. We can move on to the reports from board members.
We jumped on, it came in late, so we got to do our minutes and our abstract.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, we came in late, so we're sorry about that.
And so we can have the approval of the regular board meeting minutes of June 14th, 2023.
I so move to approve the town board minutes of June 14th, 2023 as submitted by Town Clerk Busey. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Councilman Chase.
Aye.
Councilwoman Corbin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Morelli,
Aye.
Councilman Williver,
Aye.
Supervisor Cusi.
Aye. And now we have the approval of the abstract. Councilperson Corbin.
It was my job this meeting to review the abstract and vouchers. And again, I apologize for my scratchy voice. Having reviewed all vouchers on abstract 6-2 of June 28th, 2023, authorized payment totaling of $61,558.22. which includes Fund AA General for $36,035, Fund DA Highway for $19,116.86, and Fund LL Library for $6,405.56. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Councilman Chase,
Aye.
Councilwoman Corbin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Morelli,
Aye.
Councilman Woolever,
Aye.
Supervisor Cusi.
Aye.
And Supervisor, if I could just add, the supervisor is now having a town board packet put up on the website that you can see the different documents that we're talking about. And this is the first one that he has added what's called the abstract summary. It shows those numbers and the line numbers. So if you're interested in that, feel free to reach out, look at it, and call and ask about it. We'll fill you in. That's all.
In addition to our transparency of business conduct.
Correct.
Thank you. Now we can hear the reports from board members. And we can start with Deputy Supervisor Corbin.
It will be a brief one. Yesterday I had an LWRP steering committee meeting with the town of Henrietta on legal consistency policies. Our town attorney has looked into it. Things are still in a draft stage, but slowly moving along. It's my best update. On July 2nd at the Rush Riverside Refuge, it's called the Horses Friend Rush Fun Days from 11 to 1 p.m. Completely free. It's something a Horses Friend is doing in conjunction with our wonderful town. It's a fun outdoor family event. Come and meet our horses and staff. Choose fun activities, ride a pony, lasso a steer, take a tour on foot, ride on a tractor, and it's all are welcome and there is no charge over at the Rush Riverside Refuge. I attended Mark David's retirement gathering this morning at the Highway Department. Thank you, Supervisor, and the Town Hall for putting that on for him. And as far as an update on Tier 3 solar, the Helios, better known now as Next Era on Honey Falls number 6 Road, did commence construction on July 19th. And we have been given a construction schedule, and we will be posting that to the town website under community large scale solar, so you can follow the different steps along, and it will be updated as they submit new checkoffs and things like that. But if you go drive by it, they're doing a lot of work out there. They're moving right along. That's all I have.
They sure are. Councilperson Chase.
Okay, mine's even shorter than Amber's. So, I did go to Mark's retirement ceremony this morning. I was a little bit later, so I missed probably some of you guys that were there earlier. It was nice to see Mark, and I think he's really starting to enjoy the beginning of his retirement here. So I'd like to thank Mark for all the time and work that he's put into being both a member of the highway crew and the highway superintendent. So wish him the best, and good luck to DJ filling in for him. So I have all the confidence in DJ. I think we're in good hands, as good a hands as we were in with Mark. So that's all.
Thank you. You are on.
I'm on. And so I'm gonna top them. I have even less to say. I didn't attend any other meetings outside of this other normal review, and I was not able to attend the retirement party because I had other client meetings today. But I would like to join in wishing him the best and to welcome DJ in that role. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Valerie, do you have a report? You're a lady, comes before him.
Monroe County Department of Civil Service has certified the town of Rush's payroll with 0 discrepancies for 2023.
Thank you. Dan?
I attended the library board meeting on last Tuesday. They're working on their budget. as per their schedule. I attended the comp board, planning board, meeting on last Wednesday. John's gonna come stop in and give us an update on timeline for the completion of the project. And I'd like to thank Mark for all of his hard work, and town really appreciates what he's done over the past 40 years. And that's it.
Thank you. How about our attorney, David Howe? I will admit that I went to the Mark David retirement party this morning. They say that I was responsible for it, but the fact is I was not. Shay my secretary was responsible for planning and organizing the whole thing. And I approved it, but she did it. So that's the truth of the matter. We can now move on to our old business, and that will start with the comprehensive plan update by John Morelli, the leader of that group.
Thank you. I also did not attend, unfortunately, Mark's retirement this morning, but I do want to pass on to him if you have a chance to talk to him. That I have been recruited by Rochester Institute of Technology and other groups to speak to the responsibility of retirement. It's much more complicated than work. So, you know, to the extent that he wants some help and advice, I'd be happy to. Regarding the proposed comprehensive plan update. Okay, so we have some dates up here. Very first date has passed. This is a meeting where we, the CPUC, the Comprehensive Plan Update Committee, discussed feedback from the open house. And we discussed 4 items to be highlighted. The consultant has said to us, Labella Associates has said to us, we will prepare this document for you, this comprehensive plan update, but there are 3 or 4 things that we are willing to take further into kind of a development phase, basically step-by-step recommendations to the town board in terms of how to go about doing this, how to go about doing that. And they have always insisted that it would be 3 to 4. I have always insisted that it's been 4. And so we are in the process of looking at those things. And, you know, some of them have come up and we've discussed them. They're very interesting. You know, certainly there is a very, very strong interest in the town in maintaining the rural aspects of the town, in maintaining agricultural aspects of the town, and so on and so forth. So we're looking at those things, and we're still dealing with about 7, we're trying to get down to 4 areas in which they could help provide us some guidance. The full comprehensive plan update report was supposed to be delivered to the comprehensive plan by the end of last week. I have June 26th, which is Monday, I guess. Just because my computer wouldn't allow me to put weekend dates for some reason. It has to be a Monday or Friday. But we did not get that. I spoke to our consultant today and said, hey, you know, we're really in need of this. And she promised me by the end of the week we would get this. So hopefully we can still stay on track with this schedule. The next step on the 9th, the 5th. 20th. Okay, so the 5th of July is to discuss and edit the draft CPU report. Now, we've been looking at this draft CPU report. It was prepared for us. But then there was a sequence of events, the draft implementation plan, which is kind of the last chapter that says, this is what you should do. the posters for the open house came out and it said, one poster for each chapter. And so we've been trying feverishly to review everything and get our input back to the consultant with regard to all these different aspects. And I think we're doing okay. I think that they have them and they are in the process of doing them, but there are quite a few red lines and marks that we've made. Have we considered this? Have we looked at this? Have we done this? And so hopefully by the end of this week, we will receive an updated plan with the comprehensive, with the implementation chapter that we can review. So our plan is to, on the 5th and on the 19th, to review, discuss, finalize to the extent that it is possible, our comments and release a draft comprehensive plan update for the public. And this would be something that we have not talked to the town clerk yet about how it will be there. The library makes sense because you can take it or sit down. The town clerk, we said we're going to make it available through the town clerk's office. Not sure what that means. You take it, leave, you take it, sit down. We need to work out those details, and it will be available online as well. So you can go through the 170 pages of it and take a look. Pieces of it have been made available before. The idea is that we will on the 20th, July 20th, publish this, make it available at the library and to the town clerk's office. And then by August 9th, we will hope to have comments from the public in terms of, hey, you forgot this, look at this, and so on and so forth. And we will then give it our final shot in reviewing and updating it and making a presentation to the town board September 13th. The idea is that we would put it in the hands of the town board prior to that, so they have a shot at looking at it before we actually make the presentation. And then from that point on, I don't know, depends on the reception we get from the town board, from the public. And if it is something that looks good, we believe, provided ample opportunity for the public to have some say and get some input into this. Sorry about that. We will make sure that we get in there whatever the public has to say about it, and hopefully it will be legitimate and will be something that we will be willing to move forward and make happen. So that's our thoughts that's our plan for moving forward. Any questions?
Thank you, John.
I have a comment,
Yes, sir.
and that is, I've been around here for a long time. And it historically hasn't been a regular practice to use the comprehensive plan when pursuing business needs. I think under the leadership of John Morelli, this comprehensive plan will be very thorough and very representative of what our residents want for our town in the future. And one of the things that we've got to make sure is that the comprehensive plan plays a key role in activities such as the planning group and what they decide to do for commercial areas, what they decide to do for even residential development, if that should be on the docket. So I'm looking forward to this, and I'm looking forward to seeing that complete comprehensive plan play a significant role in the activities of the town in the future.
Thank you very much, sir. We have. I've been on the planning board for over 25 years, but first 23 years, I carried around the 1993 comprehensive plan with me, and every time I tried to look up, what we could do, but so much of it had not been implemented. That we really wanted the public, really wanted to get the agreement that this is what we should move forward with before we any recommendations. So hopefully it will do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We can now have Dave Silversky and Janet Cruz update us on the Historical Society and the next steps for the 1911 Corner House.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave just gave you all a copy of what we're gonna go through tonight so that you have it in front of you. First, thank you all for having us come tonight to update you on what's going on in our activities this year. And thank you for your ongoing support for the 1911 house as we move forward, trying to provide a location where we can expand on how we share the rich history of Rush with our residents. Okay, as you know, in the fall of 2022, we were made aware of grant available through New York State Council on the Arts, NISCA. We completed the required paperwork for the New York State Vault, which you need to do to apply for any grants through New York State. Once this was reviewed and approved, we were then able to request access to grants offered through NISCA. We completed and submitted the paperwork. When that was approved, then we were finally able to apply for the grant. From late December to early January, we completed the grant, collected all the documentation required, including but not limited to a long-term lease, building plans, cost estimates, and insurance. In mid-January 2023, we were able to submit the grant. After submitting the grant, we held monthly programs. We held our annual meeting with election of officers, and we both updated and implemented new Rush Historical Society bylaws. Since then, we've also been doing basic work on the house, including some beautification on the outside, as you might have noticed if you're driving by, and some cleaning on the inside on the first floor. In the end of April, we were notified that unfortunately we did not get the grant, and we were given the opportunity to receive feedback as to why. May 25th, we had a conference call with Kate Steiger. She's the program director for capital projects for NISCA. The Steiger informed us that our project was looked at favorably. However, the committee felt we were too early in the process to receive the grant. The Steiger explained that NISCA panel looks at projects which are ready to go, with construction documents providing detailed NISCA requirements, the detail NISCA requires in order to fully assess the proposed project. We're strongly encouraged by Ms. Steiger and followed from the committee to apply for the grant again once further along. The Steiger informed us that the grant will be open again this fall with similar timelines and requirements. We're in a good place because we have all our required documentation submitted in New York State Fall and it's updated. And we have approval to apply for grants through NISCA. We will have, and because of that, we'll have immediate access to the grant application once it opens this fall. It's our intention to be fully prepared for the grant once it opens. We'll turn it over to Dave.
Yeah, so at this point, RHS has a master design plan created by Barrel Architects. The following are needed in order to move forward with both reapplication for the NISCA grant and obtaining the necessary Georgetown building permits, a site plan, and a detailed construction drawing stamped by New York State certified architect engineers. As we move forward, we actively investigate ways to obtain architectural drawings for future grant submissions and formulate better ideas as to expenditures and options. These will be from the same site plan option approved by the RTP. We've begun to clean up the floor area as we move forward with the carpet removal. The existing carpet is both stained and odoriferous. These steps were approved by the RTP on June 14th, 2023. One possibility is for us to host a work party, get the public involved, and also increase awareness of the RHS, similar to continue as our program efforts are that we have every month, as well as to increase our membership base. Currently, we are planning several fundraising events and will be working capital campaign, conscientiously avoiding the timing of events conflicted with those other groups such as the Rush Fire Department and the Rushtown Library. As previously stated in other proposals and submitted business plans, we're very passionate about our town, its historic artifacts, documents, and vast family histories. We've come a long way with RHS and will continue to access every possible way to move forward. These may be small steps, but absolutely lead to bigger things. At this time, we'd appreciate all the support and direction you can provide so that we'll be fully prepared to submit future grants and to begin using the building for our meetings, as well as to be able to invite members of the community and to see the direction we're going. Cordially, Janet Cruz and Davis the first. Any questions?
I guess what do we need to do to get as detailed construction drawings and to support a new grant application?
So we've had some quotes from Barrow and MRB, and we felt they were a little steep. So what we need to do forward, and what they wanted us to see is actual like construction drawings. What Barrow gave us was conceptual drawings. And so with conceptual drawings, you can see how it's gonna look, but there's no way to know like, layouts, fitting electric, the walls, all that kind of stuff, to have the whole site plan. So that's the next step for us is we're going to look at other options as far as getting quotes, kind of go from that. Because without that, you can't go forward with the grants. You need that. And that was the stepping point. If it was an assumption, I thought, Vero said that we, had a good shot at this, but I guess maybe none of us realized that it was just going to be conceptual drawings for the grant. Thought they would like, okay, we're drawings at all, but that's what we found out. So we're trying to just move forward with the building, so we don't look like we're just kind of sitting around. And just like
Is it the plan to hopefully get that in place so that as soon as this new application opens up, we can
That's our intention.
jump on it?
Yeah, that's our intention right now. So you can
Great.
jump right on it, yes.
But we're asking for any support you can provide us.
I suggest that whoever you get to, whether it's Barrow or some other entity, I suggest you have them develop a scope of work also, because the scope of work will explain what the construction drawings do not explain. That would be a good add.
Would it be helpful to, as we worked through the lease, we had a small group of a town board representative and the Rush Historical Society of how to take different steps to move forward to keep the communication line open? Would that be helpful to have a sit down to see what you've done so we have a better understanding and
It certainly can't hurt. I would
Okay.
strongly say.
let's put that together then? If the board's okay with that.
Yes.
Dan? Dan on the screen?
You're
Can't-
muted, Dan.
I can't hear you.
You need me to unmute you? No.
Did you get an estimate on what drawings are gonna cost?
That's what we're working on.
Okay. That microphone doesn't work very well.
I know.
There is a new one on order.
Good.
Good.
It's, when I watched the last Zoom meeting, just because I want the meeting to go on long. When David Howe was talking in the microphone, when you watch the YouTube, he sounds wonderful. You can hear everything, but for some reason live, that just does not transpose to Dan being able to hear at home. I don't know why, but we'll get it figured out. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We can now continue with the discussion regarding a local law for the removal of overgrown weeds and grass and shrubs on town property, well, not only all properties in the town. Would anyone like to start that discussion on the board?
The only thing I had was, I thought at the last meeting that we were gonna get, David, I thought we were getting like a updated law. You were gonna review it and send us something that mirrored more of what the state law was, if I remember correctly, if you guys.
Yeah.
I thought that that's what we had left it at the last time we discussed it.
Yeah, my notes showed that this was gonna be sent to codes committee for further discussion because there was some discrepancy or lack of. Sorry, it's- There was some lack of consensus on what you wanted the law to look like, how you wanted to apply, because the state standard is 10 inches. Communities vary in terms of whether they, a lot of them follow the 10 inches rule for grass, but there's some communities that go as low as 6, some goes, 12 inches, for example. There had been some discussion about to what extent do you want this law to apply only to lawn, what are traditionally called lawn areas, for example, as opposed to, field areas where people have larger properties that are unmaintained at all. That's why you don't have a new draft before you, because I didn't want to take a shot in the dark without understanding what the consensus was for this board. However, that being said, my recommendation is that we do consider abiding by the 10-inch rule that the state promulgates as sort of what they, as their standard for what constitutes overgrown grass in a lawn area. And there are various ways that you can define lawn areas. Generally speaking, that typically applies to, when you have an occupied residence, that it's basically the home. What's already maintained as the traditional home or yard areas, forward of the house, side yards, and going back to a certain extent, covering the majority of where structures might already exist. For example, if somebody has a shed or kind of immediate areas, it's very hard to define that definitively because everybody's property is different. So if you're leaving a lot of discretion to the code enforcement officer, which is just totally fine. That's their job, is to determine what's reasonable and not reasonable. If that is something that you as a board have a consensus on, I'm happy to draft a law that looks like what I just said. And that we proceed, you can discuss it further, or you can just sort of assign it to the codes committee for further discussion.
My concern with the codes committee is they have a lot on their plate.
Right.
They have a ton on their plate, and
I don't mind something like what David just said. What really, I guess maybe I just got hung up too much on the language. So I had a few things that concern me. Where there was talk of like shrubs and things like that. Well, what dictates what's overgrown? That it could be one person's opinion of that, and people could be getting tickets saying, who are they to tell you what the shrub should look like, And then the other thing was what's defined as a lawn. After we talked about it, I'm just driving around, I looked at a couple of properties that, and the right, like David said, right around the house, that was all mowed, but 75 feet behind the house on a narrow but long property, it was all, it was what you may say was overgrown, but perhaps that property, who knows, maybe they like bird watching. I don't know what their activities are. Maybe they hunt back there and let it grow for cover. So I think there's things that need to be looked into before we put this law out there with no real, it's not really, and like David said, it's hard to define what that would be.
So I think that one of the things that we can make clear in our draft of this is that, this is not intended to be a landscaping law, not trying to regulate how people's shrubs look.
Right.
It's really intended to cover, as I said, lawn areas where people have failed to mow their lawn for a period of time, and the property starts to look unkempt and becomes an attractant harboring for rodents and fire hazards, and just kind of things like that. So it sounds to me like that's kind of what we're headed towards. And so if that's the case, I agree with you, Amber. This does not, in my opinion, require the resources of the codes committee, so I can quickly put something together for hopefully the next board meeting if you want.
that'd be helpful.
You all wanna keep going with this? I'm just like,
I do, because I've heard from residents. And I want to know that we've heard them, whether we go all the way through to an adoption. But we've heard what their concerns are. We're doing our due diligence. And we will get input from the public. And we can make that determination.
I think we need to remind people that there is recourse under the state law. It's not that there is no recourse to complain or force or encourage someone to like, can you straighten out your property a little bit? You know, it's looking unkempt, you know, whatever, or worse. There is recourse at the state level.
Can I speak to rodents?
No.
I'm sorry, Robin, but it's not a public comment period. We apologize.
So
Aren't
Yeah.
there excessive or rules about zombie properties? And
yeah,
mold?
I think that, you know, there's other areas and other recourse, maybe under quote zombie properties. I agree, Dan. And then there's also, you know, issues where the property is abandoned or being taken back by a bank. I think that's been pointed out to us that there's recourse to go to the bank to tell them they have to maintain the property. So there are those kinds of exceptions. And I don't know specifically if we need to do something for zombie properties.
Well, I was just wondering what the state details were for forcing the bank to pay for remediation of grass problems on abandoned properties that they own. I mean, we fashion our law after what the state says.
So there are parallel laws that are in place here. Specifically regarding abandoned properties or zombie properties that are owned by the bank. Banks are required to maintain them, and there's a whole separate state law that governs that. We do not have to do anything specifically that addresses that. The other thing that we're talking about here is just generally relating to home property maintenance. And you know, as I indicated, the state property maintenance code has a standard of 10 inches as being what they consider to be overgrown grass. We do not have to adopt any local law. However, the default mechanism to enforce that state standard is to issue an appearance ticket, take that person to court. That person would be fined X number of dollars, and that would be the end of it. So there's no mechanism through which we can require that person to cut their grass. So that's kind of the purpose of this local law. Adopt one is, and the state has authorized municipalities to adopt these types of local laws, whereby we can give ourselves the authority where if somebody refuses to cut their grass after notice, we can go on to the property and cut the grass for them and put that cost back onto the property owner. So that's the nuance here, which is the essence of what we're talking about, is the ability to authorize us to cut the grass, because as you can imagine, especially in the summertime, grass grows pretty fast, and issuing somebody an appearance ticket to appear at next month's court date and no grass gets cut in the interim, and all they do is get a fine, the grass continues to grow and you issue another ticket, that doesn't actually solve the problem. So the state recognizes that, which is why communities are allowed to consider local laws like this, which authorize us to go in there, and just cut the grass and charge it back to the property.
When you say we cut the grass, do you mean, should it say so, like we would hire somebody to come, like a lawn care service to come and cut the, should we have some sort of language in there that implied that?
That's up,
I mean, it wouldn't be the highway department.
No.
well, that's up to the town. It doesn't have to be in the local law.
Okay,
That's just a matter of, all we're doing is in this local law is authorizing ourselves to do that. To have the grass cut.
okay.
Whether you do achieve that by having highway department or public works do that, or you go through the procurement process and hire a local landscaping company or whatever to do that. That's up to you from the enforcement standpoint later on.
I'd like the board to also be aware that the state has a pretty rigid enforcement standard And if you have somebody who doesn't maintain their property next to somebody who does, and the somebody who does asks the town repeatedly, please make them cut their grass, and the grass doesn't get cut, if that person informs the state that we as a town are not enforcing their code, they will threaten to come in and take over our code enforcement operation. That doesn't happen a lot, but it has happened. It happened several years ago in a municipality close to here. But it can happen, and we don't want to get into that situation.
But how could it if we don't have that code on our books, that we're not directly
Because
responsible?
the state
Yeah.
has the law.
State
The
has,
state has the law,
And if we're.
and a person and a resident can take it to court. Take them
Yes,
to court, and maybe it would be enough, or maybe it would be enough to just say, hey, you know, there is a state law that applies here. It can be enforced against you for the person who has the unruly lawn. And to just like, this could, get complicated. Maybe you would want to just do this before we have to go that far down the road. Would that be enough? Maybe not. I'm, you know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
I agree. I don't
I'm
want
only-
to overstretch.
I'm only being I just think, part of me thinks, living in a rural community, yes, we have the hamlet, and a long grass in a hamlet looks very different than something, on one of our rural roads. And I drove around this weekend too, looking, well, that's longer than 10 inches. Like, are we gonna get crazy over telling people to cut their lawn? You know what I'm saying? That's all I could just see is this big brother kind of thing. Rules, more rules, when maybe, do we really need to go that far? And yes, I understand it. If you're live in a more densely populated neighborhood, that it's definitely sticking out, and you're saying, what's going on with that property? And it's more of a problem. I totally get that. I just don't know how to react to it on a town that's mostly rural.
Well, my suggestion is, let's see what David can
Okay.
revise.
Okay, I'm not gonna stop
Because-
it. I just think it's very hard to define what, because you look at
Right.
immediate area under other applications in the law, it means, and it's defined as the entire parcel.
And that won't work.
well,
Which it's not.
Yeah,
because,
but no, but that's what's out there. If you try to look up a definition of what you're talking about, what's considered immediate with regard to real estate, it's the whole parcel.
Well,
because we have many parcels that have a residential dwelling
Yes,
on 2, 3, 4 acres. It would be absurd to have them have to mow all 2, 3, or 4 acres. But I
Okay.
think we should develop some wording that will assist the code enforcement officer to make a determination that, mowed far enough away from the structure itself so that it complies with whatever we want the code to be. I think that that's a safe way to go about it, and make sure that we don't get criticized for being absurd by telling someone with a 3-acre lot, you gotta mow the whole thing. That's not reasonable. But it is reasonable to say, you gotta mow it to keep the vermin out and to keep fire away from your dwelling.
Well, see what David has, we take.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll give it a shot.
we have faith in you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone. And we are not going to have a discussion to designate the 100 acres. David and I were on vacation and we didn't get to that. So we will bring it up in the future. We are now going to propose a resolution to set a public hearing regarding the host community benefit agreement with Horseshoe Solar Energy. And I want to ask Deputy Supervisor Corbin, who is the solar liaison, to discuss that and make sure you talk about the monitor.
Well, no, Supervisor, we won't be talking about anything like that. As everyone knows that we tabled this at our last meeting. And we still are not quite ready to move forward with setting the public hearing at this point. So our plan is to schedule a public hearing. I'm sorry, schedule a special town board meeting on July 5th at 7 p.m. where we hope to be able to have more to move forward with that. But at this point, we are not ready to be able to propose a resolution to set a public hearing. Instead, we'd like to, I'll make a motion to set a special town board meeting on July 5th, 2023 at 5977 East Henrietta Road at 7 p.m. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Could you pull the board, please?
Councilman Chase,
Aye.
Councilwoman Corbin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Morelli,
Aye.
Councilman Woolever,
Aye.
Supervisor QC.
Aye,
And that's that. We can move on.
thank you. Going down to new business category. We are going to have Deputy Supervisor Corbin once
You
again
want me to lose my voice?
talk about the updated zoning board of appeals application.
One of my liaison responsibilities is I'm the liaison to the zoning board of appeals. And Councilwoman Morelli is the liaison to the planning board, and back in May, the planning board updated their site plan application for people. And the zoning board has now gone through that same process for the zoning board of appeals application. It has not been updated since I think 2002, 2003, well overdue. So the chair went through and redid the zoning board of appeals application. It was sent out to the board for them to look over. It's been gone over with the clerk to the zoning board of appeals for their input and the town clerk's input. And if there is no other input from the town board, or if you need any further understanding of the proposed changes or why the changes were proposed, I will open it up to the board's questions. It is much more user-friendly. It's very straightforward. There's a checklist. So if you need a variance for a shed or a pool or something like that, it tells you step 1, step 2, step 3, and it takes you through everything that you would need to do to ensure that when you come before the zoning board of appeals, your experience hopefully is a positive one, and you can get to the desired outcome that you want versus not knowing what was needed from the last application.
And I will add that earlier this year, the planning board updated their application. And wow, what a difference it made. So I'm looking for that same level of upgrade for the zoning board.
Was there any input from the board?
Are you
This seems
adding
much more
live?
user-friendly.
Dan, what was that?
That just seems much more user-friendly than the old one.
And they mirrored it, so the front page is similar to the planning board. So when the zoning and planning board clerk is taking these applications in, they're not wondering, oh, why is that one different than this one? They're very similar. And the planning board did a great job, so they just mirrored it pretty much.
No, I think it's great. And you're going to post it?
Yes,
on the website
Yep.
with active links if you're referring to a
yep,
code?
the active links are on the last page. Yes. And we will work with the clerk and the town clerk's office to make sure
I think that's great.
it gets done. So if the board's okay, I so move to approve the updated zoning board of appeals application, which has the date of 5/2023, which will be available on the town website and available in the town hall. Is there a second?
I second that.
Councilman Chase.
Aye.
Councilwoman Corbin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Morelli.
Aye.
Councilman Wolliver.
Aye.
Supervisor QC.
Aye. And now we have our historian, Sue Me, to give us some information on the history of the Rush Riverside Refuge.
Thank you.
You're giving it a heavy duty one.
Thank you.
And I will email you what I just passed out to everyone else.
Let's see if Dan can hear you any better. Dan, let us know if you can hear Sue. Sue, talk into the microphone, see if he hears.
Dan, can you hear me?
Any
A little
better?
bit.
Talk
Okay,
right
I'll
in.
email you what I just passed out to everyone that's here,
You
okay?
gotta talk right into
Good.
it.
Thank you.
Okay. Feel like I'm right on top of it. I just want to thank, first of all, the board for the opportunity to provide you with a bit of background on the property known as the Rush Riverside Refuge. I've given you each a handout because what I'm going to be talking about might be a little bit confusing. As I mentioned, family names, dates, and locations throughout the generations. Sometimes confusing keeping our own ancestors straight, let alone someone else's family. So the hamlet of North Rush back in the 1800s and through the 1900s was a very closely knit community. If not for New York State purchasing land here to build the new state school at Industry, it's very possible that the Clapp family name would still be a part of Rush today. Extended relations are in neighboring towns still. So some history. Back in 1828, Jacob Clapp moved to Rush with his wife and children. They came here from LaGrange, New York, which is a town in the Hudson Valley region. Jacob purchased land from Oliver Phelps and James Wadsworth. The land was along East River Road at the edge of the Rush Henrietta town line and extending north or south toward 251. His land also extended west to the Genesee River. He purchased additional parcels over time. The earliest Rush maps are very sparsely detailed, but in the packet I gave you, there are two maps, an 1873 map and a 1902 map that show the location of his farm. Do we have that, Amber?
That'd be great.
Yeah. So we'll put it up on the screen, but it's in your packet as well. So the earliest Rush maps, as I said, are sparsely detailed, but I've traced the property deeds and I also have family histories that indicate that he first purchased in Rush, as I said, in 1828. I don't know if anyone has ever looked at the federal non-population census schedules. They're like a farming inventory. And they kind of, to me, because I get into this stuff, they add a little bit of more of a story to just the facts, right? So in 1860, Jacob's farm consisted of 220 acres. His farm was valued at $25,600, fair amount of money for 1860. He owned 6 horses, 15 milk cows, 36 other types of cattle, 79 sheep, 10 swine. His total livestock value was $2,568. The previous year, his farm produced 200 bushels of wheat, 90 bushels of rye, 500 bushels of Indian corn, 700 bushels of oats, and 300 pounds of wool. Seems like a lot to me, especially when you consider the type of equipment they had back then, right? Jacob and his family had clearly settled in Rush. They were working their land along with growing their farm animal population. Jacob Clapp and his wife, Sarah Stringham Clapp, lived the rest of their lives in Rush. Both are buried in the North Rush Cemetery.
Jacob and Sarah had 12 children that I've been able to identify. Yeah, wow, big families, probably needed to help work the farm, right? For our purposes tonight, I'm going to follow their second son, Isaac. Isaac was born in 1809 and he remained in Rush, farming the family farm throughout his entire life. He married Joanna Perry in 1840. Their first two children were born in Rush. Then they moved to Henrietta for a few years. Then he purchased some land from his grandfather, Jacob, and moved back to Rush, built a new house. Approximately 20 years later, Isaac and Joanna built a second home. And there's a photo of that in the packet I gave you. This was a larger, a nicer home, also on the Clapp land in the vicinity of where the Horse's Friend is located today. The 1872 map that's in your packet, and that's 1902, I think, right? But
Harry?
no, that's okay. It doesn't matter. Okay. 1872 shows that they have called the farm White Springs Farm. I don't know if it was called that earlier or not, because the earlier maps don't provide that kind of detail. The 1858 map shows who owned it, but little else. Nothing else, actually. Isaac and Joanna remained in their new home the rest of their lives. Isaac died in 1886. Their son Edwin Perry Clapp and his wife Myrna Jane Hart moved in with his mother then to provide assistance. Edwin had previously purchased his grandfather's farm in 1876. Jacob died in 1862, I think. Upon Isaac's death, Edwin bought out his brother's share of the farm. Edwin and Ermina continued on at White Springs Farm for the rest of their day. Well, no, they continued there until 1903. Ermina is the daughter of Henry Bishop Hart and Lydia Eli. These are both old names in Rush and Henrietta. The Clapp lands were located along East River Road, as I mentioned. They extended to the Genesee River. The Hart lands were primarily on the Rush-Scottsville Road, located on both sides of the Genesee River, and include the lands that are part of what we call the 100 acres today. So we have the Clapp lands that became the Rush Riverside Refuge and the Hart lands that became the 100 acres. And then, you know, the state county still own big pieces along that there as well. Edwin and Ermina had 7 children, 4 survived to adulthood. The 1902 map shows that the farm is still named White Springs Farm, still consists of parcels 57 and 58, which is right up here. And then there's a little triangle over here that Edwin Clapp owns, and this will later become Clapp property as well as it passes from the Hart to the Clapp name. But along comes, in the late 1800s, White Springs Farm also raised thoroughbred horses, which to me seems a nice fit considering the horse activity that takes place in that location today. 1903, Edwin and Ermina sell the majority of their land to New York State, and it becomes part of the New York State Agricultural and Industrial School. I found an article in the Democrat Chronicle, 1903, November that year, where it states that staff from the New York State Attorney General's office were in Rochester completing inquiries into the validity of the land titles that made up the Clapp tract. So New York State was investigating those prior to closing on the purchase for industry. The article stated that there were 9 pieces of land included in the tract, a total price of $102,000, pretty good money for 1902, the average cost of $75 an acre. The math doesn't add up there as far as the number of acres that I see on the 1902 map. So I think that might also be including the acreage that was owned by the Hart family on Rush-Scottsville Road, and maybe a couple of other properties in there as well. The New York State Industrial School continued using the former Clapp home for many years. That's the photo of the house that's in your packet. They used it as their administration building because it was a better than average little farmhouse. It was quite, you remember they tore down their first house, they built the second house, probably as they became more prosperous. And it was a nice property, very nice. So the state used that as their administration building. I'm continuing to research this piece. But the house is believed, from what I've could gather so far, to remain standing until the 1960s, sometime in the 60s. And then it was torn down. Edwin passed, so they sell the land to the state in 1903. They moved to Rochester. The children are gone, you know, they've grown up there, either at college. The oldest brother is working for the state forestry division, and the other daughter is in New York City, and then what else is left? Oh, Margaret is, I think she's in Washington at that point. So Edwin passes in 1908, Irina passes in 1921. They are also buried at the North Rush Cemetery. So although no Clapp family members lived in Rush after 1903, they continued to own this 57-acre parcel, which are these two triangles, this and this up here. It passes through the family. They set those parcels up as a Clapp Estate Corporation that passes down through the remaining members. I have a copy of that document. And it finally ends up with Margaret Ganser Bartlett, the great granddaughter of Jacob Clapp, and she sells it in the early 2000s. So this is the piece of land located behind what was the North Rush Church. I say behind, the land north of the church, now the Wheatland Community Church. So that was really kind of the closing chapter, the family owning land in Rush, which they'd done for almost 175 years at that point in time. To me, I think of additional interest to our Rush history is that Isaac Clapp, Joanna's father, was, she's the youngest daughter of L. Nathan Perry, who was an American Revolutionary War soldier. He was originally born, or he was born in Massachusetts. He moved to Vermont, frustrated after the war with the lack of water on his farm property. So he settles in Rush.
You say lack of water?
Lack of water. It's not a new situation. No. He buys 100 acres on Fishel Road by the creek, both sides of what is now the road, because obviously there was no road there. And he bought that in 1806. His youngest daughter ends up marrying into the Clapp family, but he served 7 years in Washington's army. James Clapp, the son of Isaac and Joanna, is he was in the Civil War. He died at age 19, fighting at the Little Round Top battle at Gettysburg. His body was also returned back to Rush. He's buried in North Rush Cemetery, as are L. Nathan Perry. So there's a lot of history in that whole western side of Rush that represents this family. They're very well represented in the North Rush Cemetery. Their farm had a big influence on our community, and particularly the North Rush hamlet. They were early pioneers here. They're an important part of the early settlement for 175 years. I've also kind of come to this kind of mindset that probably Edwin and his father, Isaac, were very creative people, and Percy as well. I found several farming patents that Edwin filed, and I've got copies of those. They both did a lot of research. Edwin wrote a whole manuscript on early pioneer trade on the Genesee River. I've had other researchers contact me for copies of this that they're using in their research. And it's kind of neat that we had somebody from Rush that was that well, written and that sort of thing. And then Percy also conducted a great amount of research during his years. He ended up working at the New York City, New York Public Library for many years as a department head. So this is just a little bit of the small portion of information that I found on just this one segment of the family. But the Clapp family itself is related to many other Rush early families. The Harts, the Sibleys, the Martins, the Greens, several others into Henrietta as well. And based on this brief background history of the Clapp family in Rush and the White Springs Farm, I would like to respectfully ask the town board to consider renaming the Rush Riverside Refuge to either be White Springs Farm or include that as part of its name. Because I think restoring the name to the property would serve to recognize the history of the family farm and their importance to the North Rush hamlet. So it's a lot of detail. That's why I gave you a printout of all the generations and the dates and the names, a lot of similarity, but if anyone has any questions or.
that was especially enjoyable for me. And I think you know why. I've told you before. My wife and I, well, the original state school was in Rochester, New York, where Edgerton Park is today. And my wife and I bought the original stable for that property in the early 80s. I think it was the early 80s. And it had this 7,000 square foot carriage house that we turned into luxury apartments. And it was long before that the school moved out to industry, paying the Claps the money for the property, which enabled them to move back into the
Back
city.
into the city, kind of ironic there.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
when it was in the city, it was the Western House of Refuge.
Yes,
And at that time, there were a lot of societal changes and different philosophies. Basically, the young people that were at the Western House of Refuge, they were maybe kids that had gotten into trouble, but they might have also been orphans, or they might have just been poor and their families couldn't afford to take care of them. And in some years, it was also a workhouse where the kids were sent out to, take on different jobs.
So you gotta talk to the mic.
Oh, sorry. But the money, it came back to the facility. It wasn't anything they earned. Society pressures started changing that and saying, we need to provide a more positive role in transforming these kids to a positive life style. So the idea was to have an agricultural and an industrial school, so they learned a trade, they learned farming, so they were in these individual cottages on 50-acre plots. Once they moved out to Rochester or to Rush, they learned some skills. And I would just, if possible, like to somehow include that history of the property now. So put it out there for consideration.
I find it interesting that it's on this map from way a long time ago,
Yeah.
over 100 years ago. So.
I love looking at all that.
Well, but it's.
Thank you.
I think it would be kind of cool.
I would,
I think it would be a good thing.
not tonight, but I would like to entertain Sue's proposal to rename the property.
Yeah, I'm all for it. We can figure out a way to do it.
Yeah, how do we do that?
I believe
It's
in,
another task for David.
You can just do it by resolution. Yes.
it got named the Rush Riverside Refuge in that same manner.
Oh.
So we can do that again. I think it's more important that we relate to history than we,
No, I like it. I
yeah,
like the idea.
okay.
What's that?
With no other business to conduct. I think, is that true? Yep. I declare this meeting over.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
All right.
Thank you for coming. Oh, and Beth Hoke, I did read your appeal.